Okay, first crash. A little piece of plastic came off. Right there, the arm underneath. All right, let's see if it can fly still. So this is the DJI AVATA 2, and I've crashed this a few times, and it survived. This is actually a really good drone for how small and lightweight it is. Now, the big thing with this style of drone is that it's an FPV drone. And so the footage that you're going to be getting is from this perspective where you're flying like a plane forward through a bunch of objects. So it's a little bit different than other drones that are out there. And personally, I'm not super experienced flying FPV drones. I started flying the original DJI AVATA, and I never really got into building my own FPV drones and mounting my own cameras on and all of that. And so the DJI AVATA 2 is very much set up for a user like me, potentially like you, someone who just wants to play around with filming an FPV and wants to have some fun, but also have the capabilities to get some really good footage from this style of camera. And all the footage that you're seeing in this video was shot using the DJI AVATA 2, and I went out to Utah to meet up with a few buddies to go overlanding, and I had the opportunity to fly in a bunch of really cool, unique locations. And for me, I was able to pick up this drone without having flying FPV for a while and be able to get some really cool shots that work super well for the different videos that we created from this trip. So let's talk about some of the features about this drone while I show you some of the footage that I was able to capture using the AVATA 2. So the highest resolution that you can film on this drone is 4K at 60 frames per second. Now the sensor on this drone is a 1 and 1.3 inch sensor. So it's the same size that you get on the Air 3 or the Mini 4 Pro. Now the field of view is 155 degrees, which is equivalent to a 12 millimeter. And depending on the mode that you're flying in, your footage might be punched in slightly. In this drone, you have rock steady and you also have horizon steady, and I'll explain those in a little bit and show you some samples side by side. Now the aperture on this camera is an f2.8 and it's a fixed aperture camera. So if you want to shoot with proper motion blur, DJI does have a set of filters that clips right on the front. And a lot of the footage that I've been shooting with was shot with these ND filters, so you get more motion blur. I think it's a great idea when you're filming, especially with an FPV drone, to have some motion blur in your shot because it really creates that sense of motion when you're flying really close to objects. Now, in terms of color, you have a standard profile, which has contrast and saturation, and then you also have D-Log-M. And all of the footage that I shot in this video, I shot using D-Log-M, and I color graded using my set of drone LUTs, and I'll include a link to those down below in the description. Now, unlike a lot of the other drones, there's not vision sensors all around it, so you can run into objects pretty easily. However, there is some downward sensors and there's some sensors on the back that face backwards. This allows to have a little bit of control, and also the drone will be able to figure out where the ground is so that it can land safely. You could definitely crash into objects, but with the design, it's built to take an impact. And when I was out flying, I definitely crashed this a few times. I ran into some bushes, I hit my buddy's Bronco, but overall, no issues with the drone. I cracked one of the arms, but it still flies, and I have no problems with it. Now with this drone or any of DJI's drones, you could get DJI Care Refresh, which is a protection plan so that if you end up destroying this drone, you can get a replacement or you can get it repaired, and they have coverage of a year or up to 2 years. So if you are someone who's new to FPV flying, getting the DJI Care Refresh might be a good idea. And with the way that you want to fly an FPV drone, there's a lot of opportunity to crash them. Because when you're flying FPV, it's a very immersive experience. One reason that you would want to get a drone like the DJI AVATA 2 is to get some good footage to get that FPV look. But another reason is to just have fun because you put the goggles on, you have your motion controller, and it feels like you're there in the action. And even if you're not filming for a specific video, it's just a lot of fun to fly an FPV drone and explore some different places. I went to an abandoned water park between here and Vegas, and I just had a lot of fun flying through the water park and exploring the entire place using the FPV drone. So definitely beyond just getting some good footage, this is a style of drone that's just fun to fly, and it almost feels like a video game when you're in there just exploring different places using the drone. So let's go over what comes in this kit with the AVATA 2. So you get one of these bags like all of DJI's drones now. The whole thing with this drone is that there's not much to it. You have the headset, which has the battery built in on the strap. So this is it. You don't need your phone to work with it. You don't need anything besides the headset. When you initially set up the drone, you have to link it to your phone to be able to activate it and do all that. But once it's activated, you could just use this to fly. Now there's the 3 battery charging station. These lock in nicely. It's a nice click. Everything's locked in tight. And DJI has redesigned this drone from the original AVATA, so you'll see that it's a much more slim design. Looks a little bit different. Now you have the AVATA itself. You have a little cover on the front, and then there's also some ND filters so that you can bring down your exposure when you're in super bright conditions like this. And then last is the motion controller. So I've been flying this drone completely with the FPV motion controller. And at first, it's a little bit different than flying the normal controller. But now I actually prefer working with this because it just feels much more fluid. It's a fun experience to be able to use this and just twist your wrist around and be able to control the drone in the sky. So on the controller, you have your trigger, which when you pull it, the drone moves forward. When you push backwards, the drone moves backwards. You have a record button here on the side. And then you also have this jog wheel here, which also clicks to be able to change different settings when you're flying. Now on the top, you have a joystick. This allows you to control the drone in the sky. You have your start button. And you also have a brake button so you can stop any motion when you're flying and let the drone hover. And then you also have your mode button and your return to home. And so at any point you can click this to go from normal to sport mode. And sport mode is just a faster mode. So you can move super fast in the sky versus the normal mode, which is a little bit slower. So let's take this drone off, get it into the sky, and let me show you how this all works and how all the features work so you can see how easy it is to fly this drone, even if you've never touched one before. Now the headset sits nicely. You got your 2 little antennas that pop up. On the side here, you have a joystick and then you have a back button. So you can control everything on the menu with this button on the headset. So if you pull down, you're gonna bring up one menu. If you pull to the right, you bring up another menu. And if you pull up, you bring up the third menu. So when you pull down, you're gonna have this first menu and you can record what's on the screen. So when you're filming, you can have it simultaneously record what the drone is seeing, but also what your goggles are seeing. So with all of these overlays, and I always have this turned on so I have both recording. There's a micro SD card slot in the headset so that you record whatever you're seeing in the headset. Now there's a button for an enhanced display, which brightens it up a little bit, makes it a little bit more sharp so you can see what you're doing. You could use head tracking. So when this is on, I can move my head around and it actually controls the drone. So I'm looking down, I'm looking up. As I move forward, where that dot is, I can look around. So it's a fun mode to play with if you want to use your head to kind of track where the drone is looking. Now the next button over is live stream to mobile device. So you don't have to connect a phone. You could just live stream using Wi-Fi to be able to see what you're doing. So you can have someone watching while you're in the goggles. And then the last thing is your brightness. Now, if we push to the right, you'll see that you have a few menu options. You have status, you have transmission, and you have settings. So under settings, you could have things like your camera, your control, and this is where you could set up everything about the camera. So I have aspect of 16:9, video quality 4K 60, camera field of view is wide. I'm using the rock steady, my auto ISO limit, grid lines, I could turn these on. So just a bunch of settings to be able to control the camera, see what you're doing. Now, when you pull up, this is all of your camera settings. So you could go through, change your ISO, your shutter, your exposure compensation, your white balance, aspect ratio, video quality, camera field of view, auto ISO limit, EIS, which is your stabilization, and your color. And these are all grayed out because I'm currently recording right now so you could see this. But as you're flying, before you start recording, you just pull up on this menu, change all of your settings. And so let me show you how easy it is to actually fly this drone. So I'm gonna pull this menu back down, and now we're in the filming mode. And when I pull on the trigger slightly, you'll see this little O pop up on the screen. Now, wherever you point this O is where the drone's gonna go, and you're gonna pull on the trigger to move forward. Now, to control the drone up or down, you just tilt up or you tilt down, and the drone's gonna move in that direction. Now,
with a FPV drone, you're always moving forward. So when you move up or down, it's like a plane moving up or down. Now there is a joystick on top of the controller. And when you use this, you can actually push the drone up or down like a normal drone. So it could go straight up into the sky or it could come straight down. And also if you pull left or right, it's going to pivot that drone in the sky. And you can see that it's very slow movements with this. So really when you're flying the drone, you're basically moving forward at all times, and you tilt up or you tilt down to move the drone. Now to turn and do these pivots like you're seeing in the footage right now, you twist your wrist side to side. It's not a twist this way. It's like you're taking that front and dropping it to the left or dropping it to the right. And that's how the drone moves in the sky. So it's a little bit different flying experience at first, but once you get the hang of it, you can really start having some fun with the drone and moving it in some interesting ways. Now, wherever you took off from, you'll see the H off in the distance. So I'll click the red button here. It's going to pause the drone and just have it sit up in the sky. And you can see where the home point is over on the hilltop. And this orange button is going to stop the drone. So whenever you need to pause and hover, you just click the orange button and it pauses. Click it again and you can start flying again. Now let me bring this back because the drone's almost out of battery. And when you're ready to land the drone, you just pull down on the joystick until the drone lands on the ground. And the propellers will turn off. Now what I want to show you is the different ways that you could use this drone to shoot. So the wider field of view versus the more narrow, and also the different levels of horizon stabilization that you have. So this is rock steady with the ultra wide mode. And so I'm going to fly the same path with each mode just so you could see how much of a difference there is between them. So this is wide with the rock steady. So this is normal with the rock steady. Now this is horizon steady. So this is going to keep your horizon level no matter how the drone is twisting in the sky. So it gives you a completely different look when you're flying that feels more like a normal drone, but you're moving in this FPV way. Now you also have two modes. So I'm going to turn on sport mode. So you could click the mode button on the controller and then it goes faster. So this is on wide with rock steady, but in sport mode. And you can see how much faster this is when you put these side by side. Now, as I said earlier, one of the big things with this drone is ease of use. I'm not that good of an FPV pilot, and I feel very confident flying this drone in so many different ways and getting some really cool footage where you're buzzing close to objects, close to Jeeps and Broncos and right up alongside trees and down by a river. Like, it just makes this style of filmmaking so much easier to do. But one of the things that DJI has done in this specific drone is give you some acro moves that can be performed super easily. So you could do like a 180 flip, you could do a rotation, and these are moves that are super hard to do as an FPV pilot. Making them easy, quick shots on this drone, make it so that it's more of a flying experience to play with these. So pretty cool. As I said at the beginning of the video, this is just a fun drone to fly, whether you are trying to capture some really cool FPV shots for your video, or you just want to go out and fly FPV with a sense of security, knowing that you have a drone that's easy to manage in the sky and be able to fly back to your home point and just have a safer experience so that there's less chance that you crash or lose your drone. Now, if you want any more information about the DJI AVATA 2, I'll put a link down below in the description. And next, you should check out this video right here, which goes through, well, this background that you see behind me. I went to Utah to shoot this video that's actually playing on a bunch of screens, and I made a video breaking down the entire process of how I built my studio, and you'll see some FPV shots in that video as well. I'll see you over there.